This is the voice recording of Julie Hogan's speech, and these are her audience members.
Thank you all so much for coming today. I am going to take about 10 minutes of your time and go over a topic that's very difficult to discuss but necessary, and that topic is of divorce. My goal is by the end of this speech that you will have information regarding the different types of divorces, how those divorces affect everyone involved, and the various ways that divorces are completed within the legal system. First of all, I'd like to tell you that a divorce, by definition, is actually a legal termination of a marital union between two people in the church or in a legal means. So my goal, again, is to teach you the various types of effects that people get from having divorces, and the types of divorces that there are, and just information regarding those things. So let's get started. First of all, there are several different types of divorces. One divorce is called a no-fault divorce, and then there's an at-fault divorce. In the 50 states of the United States, everyone is able to have a no-fault divorce. That wasn't always the case. In a no-fault divorce, you don't have to prove anything has happened. You don't have to give any information other than you want to terminate your marriage. In an at-fault divorce, the burden can be a little bit different. Usually someone has done something in the marriage that the other person would be unhappy about and would like to discuss that as part of the divorce for various reasons. In an at-fault divorce, there is a burden of proof, so the person who is accusing the other has to be able to show in the courts that what they have alleged is accurate. But prior to 1960, you had to prove in the courts that there was a fault before you could get a divorce. And in many states, divorces were not legal. Again, now in all 50 states, there is a no-fault divorce available to anyone. Then there are the contested and uncontested divorces. A contested divorce can be a much longer process. Oftentimes, the attorneys will have to go round and round in different court situations trying to come to an agreement. There's usually a part of the agreement that one of the parties is not agreeing to, so the attorneys will go back and forth trying to come up with suggestions so that each party will get what they want in the divorce. That is a contested divorce. And an uncontested divorce is when both parties agree to all of the terms. There's nothing that either one of them want to change, and it is a simple process. If it's uncontested, you are almost guaranteed that the judge will approve your divorce with no problems whatsoever. There's also two other types of divorces. One is called a summary divorce, and one is called a collaborative divorce. In a summary divorce, it's when people who've been married just a very short period of time, they don't have assets together, they don't have children, they don't have properties, they don't have finances that they need to be even discussing in the courts to divide up. So they essentially are just saying that the union of the two needs to be terminated, and is a very simple, easy process. In a collaborative divorce, there are many parties involved. There are attorneys, there are divorce coaches, and there are financial planners. These are very long processes. They don't always come to an agreement in this type of a divorce. There are sessions that are set up 2 weeks in advance, given topics that are going to be discussed on both parties. Any information that is obtained during these proceedings are not able to be used in the court of law unless it is a sworn affidavit or an interim agreement that has been made. If they can't come to agreement during a collaborative effort, then they will have to proceed to divorce proceedings in the courts. So those are the different types of divorces that there are. Now we're going to talk about the different reasons people get divorced. There are many different reasons. I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the ones that are the most prominent in the courts. And the first one is adultery, which is about 30% of divorces come from adultery. And adultery is when one or both of the parties have had extramarital affairs during their union. And adultery can cause there to be it can be a very emotional situation. So typically, if that is what comes out in a divorce, that causes the divorce to be a very contentious one, which can cause a lot of problem. However, if one of the people are found to have committed adultery, the person who this was committed against does have some extra leverage if in fact they are able to prove that the person committed adultery. They are able to typically get more money in the courts. The person who committed the adultery can lose their privileges with their children, and also will have to pay a large amount of money to the person that they committed it against. In America, 75% of husbands will commit adultery and only 25% of women. There is domestic violence. All of those cases, when domestic violence is included, will go directly to the courts. The judges will handle all of those cases so that if there's any problems during the divorce proceedings, then the judges can go and bring charges directly against the person who's committing that act. It says that 97% of domestic violence doesn't even occur until after a separation happens in a marriage, and then that's when there becomes a problem. Addictions to drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, paraphernalia, those kinds of things can cause a lot of problems in marriages. Fortunately, there's a lot of help in various avenues for those things, but they can be very damaging and cause divorces all the time. Financial issues are the #1 problem in marriages in all of the United States. The loss of jobs, people having different ideas of what the finances should be, the ability of one to keep up with what they've agreed to do financially for the family. Also, just having different ideals of how they're going to spend their money can cause a lot of conflict in a marriage. A couple more. One is somebody who is addicted to their work. Their career is very important to them, and therefore they spend all of their time at their job, taking care of their career, always worried about that, and leaving their loved one at home alone, leaving them to feel unloved and very lonely. So those are some of the reasons that divorces occur. And lastly, I want to discuss what those effects are on the relationships that happen from a divorce. Statistically, there's not a lot of data that shows specifically whether it's good or bad on children. There's just data that shows what some of the effects are. That says that children from 3 to 5 tend to blame themselves when parents get divorced, and children older than that tend to have a lot of anger and stress and things attached with the divorce. Educationally, children are 2 times more prone to not finishing high school, and much more likely to not even go to college in a single family home. It says that is when both parents are not involved. So if parents get divorced and stay involved with their children, then that statistic is not valid. The relationships between the parents can change, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. It's said that psychologically most children are happier when the parents are not feuding and not having problems between the two of them. But then again, when one of the parents then has to take on a job to be able to financially sustain their life, that leaves less time for their children and can cause conflicts in those areas. So, as I said in the beginning, I am personally actually going through a situation like this, so it's very helpful for me to understand what divorce can do to my family and to my children. And I think that in America, divorce is all too often the first thing that people do. There's a lot of things that you can do to try not to get divorced by going to counseling and seeking people from your church to help you and things like that. So it's my opinion that at all costs, divorce should be avoided if at all possible. So that concludes my speech. Now I'm going to see if you guys have any questions. We'll return to the
I have a
audience.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is there a reason for divorce of which one would maybe take a longer time to go through court? Which one of those reasons, like adultery or domestic violence? Do you know which one of those?
As it pertains to the reasons, it would be a more difficult situation to prove that somebody has done something wrong. So in an adultery case or domestic violence case, there would be a burden of proof. When somebody has drug addictions or gambling and those kind of things, again, there is a burden of proof. So in those types of reasons for divorces, there are the proceedings that we have to prove those. So that would take longer than just a normal, we're having trouble communicating, we're not getting along, and we don't agree on things, so let's just get divorced. When there's things like that involved, you have the burden of proof, so it would take much longer.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that you said in America the #1 reason for divorce is financial problems, but in other parts of the world, is divorce as common as it is in America? And if so, what are the reasons?
No, actually there are a lot of countries that divorce is not allowed. Many cultures even. So even in the United States there are cultures that exist here where people don't allow divorce. I think America is the highest rate of divorce, and I don't know if that is the lifestyle that we lead or our morals and values, but in many other countries divorce is not an option.
All right.
Anybody else?
I have a question. I know that the divorce rate is high. Do you know what it is right now around?
It is at 50% now. They're saying that in the statistics that I read, they used to say that the first 5 years of marriages were the hardest, and now they're saying that the divorce rate has dropped to basically almost zero in the first 5 years. Now they're saying that the highest rate is at 15 years and up. So the percentage at this point now is 50% of marriages will fail. It's a very alarming number to me that is the case.
I have a question. Is there any research done about premarital counseling and how it affects divorce?
I didn't see anything in any of the information I was reading. Myself personally, I did do premarital counseling and know that there was a lot of discussion about what we had in common. And I think that that's, in my opinion, again, a very important part of getting married. Making sure that you have those things in common as it pertains to children, as it pertains to money, and the things that you want out of life.
I have a question. Does it say anywhere which person in the marriage files for divorce more, the male or the female?
Yes, female are 74% of females will be the ones that file for the divorce. It is more likely that by the time a woman has filed for divorce, they have tried many things. When men file, it is typically a very quick reaction and file for divorce without a lot of forethought in it. So 74% of women.
Do you think that's because men don't act out of emotion and women do, or do you think that it's women have monetary values, that they just want money?
I mean, I would just speculate on that. I don't have data on it, but I would say that personally, I think that women use their heart more often to make decisions, and men are more rational in thought processing, and I think women try very hard to make things last as long as they possibly can. I think that concludes the speech. I hope that everybody enjoyed it, and thank you very much again for coming.